Good afternoon, good people. It's me, Shelby, here to do a video. I want to do a video on Boston versus Atlanta. Which city do you prefer? And the reason why I want to talk about this is because I'm in a Facebook chat group. It's an African American chat group, by the way, so keep that in mind because that's significant. So when I talk about Boston and Atlanta, I am coming from an African American perspective, and this is regarding the African American chat group. So just keep that in mind, okay? The reason why I want to talk about it, because I'm in this group, somebody posted a reel. You know, people post reels all the time on social media, and I guess this reel had Lil Baby, the rapper, and a question was posed to him about which cities do you like to shop at. So Lil Baby was like, well, I like to shop at off-brand cities, because, you know, it's just, you know, what I like to do. And he used Boston as an example. So he's like, Boston, like I'll go to Boston, you know. And so people that were from Boston in the chat room were like offended by him calling the city off-brand. And I think they misunderstood what he was saying. You know, I just think that he probably doesn't shop in cities like New York or LA, Chicago, because they're huge cities, and you know, he'll, you know, just be more noticed, I guess. I don't know. He just preferred to be somewhere low key. That's what I think where he was going. But things just got out of control in this chat room, this chat group, and people were taking things way to some other level, to the point where it got to which city is better, Boston or Atlanta. And you had a lot of people from the South, mainly from the South, bashing Boston. You had a few from the Midwest that was doing that, and a few from the West Coast, but mainly it was people from the South bashing Boston. I'm talking about people from like Atlanta, because Houston, Tennessee, you know, they were just, you know, Georgia, Alabama, they were just going in on Boston. So, and me being from Wisconsin, I'm from Milwaukee, and I lived in New York City. So I lived in New York City for several years, and I almost moved to Boston. I almost moved to Phoenix, and I've been to Atlanta so much that I do know the city. But I definitely know Boston because I've been up there a lot, being that I lived in New York. So I used to go kick it all the time in Boston, kick it all the time in Philadelphia and DC. So I know Boston very well, and I almost moved there. So I decided to lower the temperature down of people bashing Boston, because to me, I could tell that they are regional, based on the comments I was reading. They're really regional in their thinking. It just seems like they don't really get out much, or they go to specific cities, you know, like New York, maybe DC, and then go back to where I don't know. So I decided to get into the chat room and tell people, you know, and let them know that when you look at the United States in terms of like tourism, just on tourism alone, the United States is the second most visited country in the world. I believe only France is higher. So if France is the most visited, and I believe the United States is in second place. And when people come here, you know, obviously the United States is a big country. We have a lot of people like to come for our national park system. We have some beautiful parks here, and some big major cities and attractions and things like that. But when it comes to like major cities, I this is what I told the group, that these are the cities that get visited the most in the United States, domestic and foreign. But for the most part, people that are not from the U.S. Come to these specific cities the most. Obviously, New York is number one. So that's the city that gets attention. New York, you got LA, you got Chicago, Miami, Boston, Philadelphia, DC, Seattle, San Francisco, Las Vegas, and Orlando for the Disney effect. So those are the top cities that's get as far as tourism goes, they get visited the most. It's been this way for like decades, like 20, 30 years. Atlanta is just now getting into that. So they're in that conversation or in that group with those cities. For the last maybe 6 years or so, Atlanta has been in that group as well. So those are the cities that get attention. So this is what I told the group. And all of a sudden, the group started to get on me about, oh, what do you know? This is bullshit. Boston doesn't get tourism. Boston doesn't do that. Boston don't have this, don't have that. And I'm trying to tell them it does, because I know Boston. I've been to Boston. I know it thoroughly. You guys are wrong. So anyhow, so yeah, they were getting on me. But I held my own, because I basically just came with facts. So, but I want to ask you guys, what do you think? What do you think? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get into the pros and cons of both of these beautiful, vibrant cities, okay? Boston and New York. Boston and Atlanta, excuse me. And I do prefer Boston, and I have my reasons for it. It's just, what you're into, basically. Your perspective, what you're into, and that's pretty much what it comes down to. People were getting on me about why I chose Boston. Well, Boston's not black enough, and Boston don't have any black people, which all of that is not true. It's not true. So I'm just gonna, it's all, what's your interest? What is your interest? What your interest is, and that's it. And what vibe are you on? So I'm going to talk about the pros and cons to both real quick, and then you guys let me know what you think. What is your preference? Okay. So for me, Boston. I'm gonna start with Boston. The cons and pros. I'm gonna start with the cons first. The cons with Boston is the price of living. It is extremely expensive. I believe Boston is, I think New York is the most expensive city, San Francisco, then Boston. Boston is, it's ridiculous. It's very, 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 very pricey. So if you're trying to move to Boston, please be sure to do your homework and just understand that this city is not cheap. And I believe it's that way due to there's demand to live there, but the supply, as far as like trying to find somewhere to live or buy a home or whatever the case may be, that's driving up the price. And not just the homes and apartments, but the goods and services and things like that. It's a very, 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 very pricey city. So keep that in mind. Also, the climate. So if you are not a person who likes cold weather, Boston may not be for you. The winters can be harsh. The winters, like I would say January and February, those 2 months are probably the harshest months regarding winter. But if you're not used to that kind of weather, and if it doesn't appeal to you, you may not like Boston. Those are really the only two cons I have with Boston. The pros, what I like about Boston, I'm a history buff. So again, this all goes back to interest. I'm a history buff, so obviously that's appealing to me. Cities like Boston and Philly and DC and New York, even some southern cities, like cities in North Carolina and South Carolina. I'm a history buff. Boston has a lot of history. It was one of the first cities, if not the first city of America. So I find things like that interesting. They still have some of the old buildings that were from like 1700s still there. They preserved them all around the downtown area, which is great. The Quincy Market is dope. Boston to me is very scenic and very beautiful as a city. It has charm. It has uniqueness, flavor. Very, very New England-esque, and it is a New England. So, and it's just a really scenic, beautiful city. Vibrant downtown area. Lots of dope. The art scene is awesome. Art scene. They have some really outstanding, great museums. So all those things are pluses, A pluses. Boston is an educated city. Overall, yes, it's educated, but regarding the black community and black people and the African Americans there, um, this is they are very educated. So you can converse with these people. Very educated city, very educated town. You know, Boston is a cool city. I can't lie. Very vibrant. The scene, everything is lovely. So kudos to Boston. They have some really nice schools there, especially on a university level. Obviously, Harvard's there, so you got Harvard, you have MIT, you have Boston College, you have Boston University, and other universities. All these schools are very top notch, and they are extremely difficult to get into. They're private schools too, so it's going to cost you a lot of money. But yeah, so the city just is it's an A+ city. Um, Also, what's a plus for me, a pro for me, is you can go to Cape Cod, Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, those things that Atlanta just don't have. You know, again, these islands that's off the coast of the state, over by the Boston area, are really beautiful, have a lot of charm. I think the Obamas live in Martha's Vineyard, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But I know they had a home in D.C. and I think they bought one in Martha's Vineyard too. But I could be wrong about that. And to the west of the state, you have the Berkshire or Berkshire, which is really beautiful. So if you're a person who's into all four distinct seasons like I am, because Boston has this, they have winter, summer, fall, and spring. If you go in the spring, if you go in the fall, it is exceptionally beautiful. The whole New England area is probably the best when it comes to colors. I'm from Wisconsin, and our fall season and our foliage is really good, and very colorful. But I don't think any the New England area is the best with the fall stuff. So it's the foliage, the colors. We talking Massachusetts, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, New York, upstate New York by the Adirondacks. All that is beautiful, extremely beautiful and mountainous. So, so it's a lot of pros for me for Boston and the area. Just beautiful. So there you have it with Boston. As far as Atlanta goes, so there are some pros with Atlanta as well. Again, another vibrant city, real cool city. I do like the fact that a lot of African Americans have moved into the city and made a positive impact on the city to the point where it made Atlanta even more vibrant, even more hip, even more cooler. And black people did that, so it's really great to see that. I like the fact that they've impacted the state to the point, even politically. They're involving themselves politically, in politics, and things like that, to the point where Georgia used to be like reliably a red state. I don't think that's no longer the case, at least in the last couple of election cycles, but that hasn't been the case. Overall, I still believe that it is a conservative state, but it's just not reliably GOP anymore. But I still think it's a conservative state. It's going to be a while before I can say it's a purple one. But I think things are changing in that direction as far as like being a purple state, and that is due because of African Americans involving themselves more in politics. They too have some good schools down there in the Atlanta area. In Atlanta, Emory's down there, which is a great school. HBCUs, which is something that they do have over Boston. So Boston, you know, you have Morehouse, you have Spelman, Clark, Atlanta University. Georgia Tech is in Atlanta. So they got some good schools. Boston schools are a little bit more prestigious and very hard to get into, but the HBCUs is definitely dope. It's unique to the southern states, and that's something Boston doesn't have. Also, there's some sophistication with black people, just like in Boston. There's some sophistication with black people down in Atlanta. So you could talk to and converse with people down there that are educated, etc. The aquarium. The aquarium is dope, and that's that Boston doesn't have. I think Boston has Atlanta beat as far as attractions, but the one thing Atlanta does have over Boston when it comes to attractions is the aquarium. The Shedd Aquarium in Chicago is really dope as hell. But I do like the one in Georgia a tad bit more, but not by a lot. So Atlanta is a beautiful city. I don't think it is as pretty as Boston's. I don't think it has that kind of charm like Boston does. But it is a beautiful city. So those are some of the pros with Atlanta. I like the unity that black people have down there, the entrepreneurship that's going on, and all just making the city just real cool. But the cons to me are outweighing the pros, and that's the issue I have with Atlanta. So for me, there's a lot of foolishness going on with Atlanta in terms of like how people are behaving down here. I think so many people from out that are not from Atlanta moved into the area, moved into the city, and affected it. And you have the natives there who probably didn't appreciate that. But to me, what ended up happening was you have people that are not from Atlanta and the natives influencing each other, right? So you see them influencing each other, and as a result, some stuff people are just acting really ridiculous down here. Like a lot of people are sitting up there putting on these facades and fronting like they got it like that when they don't, and they shouldn't be doing that. You got all these silly reality shows that are popping off down there where black people are fighting with each other all the time. These reality shows, arguing, fighting constantly. You got certain programs down there where you have black men and women just being divisive against each other, talking, bashing each other, all this divisive stuff. The Saucy Santana guy and Shamar, stuff like that. I just don't want to be associated with it. And I know I'm taking that out on Atlanta, and I shouldn't be, but that's just how I feel. I just don't want to be associated with that. In Boston, you don't see any of that occurring in the black community. Boston does have a gay scene there, but you don't see them acting ridiculous like Saucy Santana and Shamar and all this stuff. When you go to Boston, you're dealing with just normal, regular people that are educated. So that's the difference with Atlanta to me and Boston. But at the end of the day, I think that Boston's a better city for me, just for my personal thing. It's just something, the things that I'm into and interested in is Boston. So I'm an outdoors person, so I like to hike. I like to do all that stuff, man, and Boston has that. I like all 4 seasons, and like I said, I'm from the north, and from Milwaukee, and your environment shapes you. You know what I mean? So your environment shapes you, and so I'm used to these seasons, 4 distinct seasons that we get, and I take advantage of them. I like to go out into the snow and do things in the wintertime. I hike. I do tubing. I haven't skied yet. I would like to do that, but I do that. And yes, the winters can get harsh in Milwaukee and in Wisconsin, just like Boston and New York, but we have things to do. So December's fine. December's not that bad. When it snows, you can go out there. It's all Christmassy and beautiful and scenic. But then when January comes, it can get rough. Because like I said, to me, the northern states with these seasons, we are very pretty states, very scenic states. Wisconsin is extremely beautiful. We're a Great Lakes state. We have the many lakes in the state. The fall foliage, we ski, the snow comes on the trees. It's all beautiful. But we get these blizzards and things like that, it gets real. So it's just about wearing a proper attire. But yeah, I just think Boston's a better city. Now, let me know if you guys think I'm wrong. Okay. I just think it is. Like I said, it's all personal preference. I don't dislike Atlanta. I probably wouldn't want to live there. I'm still going to go down there and kick it and visit, but I just don't want to be around the rah-rah stuff. Um, and like I said, Boston has their fair share of foolishness, but not like Atlanta. New York has their fair share of foolishness, but overall, you're dealing with sophistication. When I went to Phoenix, I spent a lot of time in Phoenix. I know Phoenix very well. Same thing, you know, I like it better than Atlanta for different reasons. You know, like I said, I'm into hiking, and Phoenix is very, very beautiful. It's a beautiful city surrounded by all these mountains and beautiful. It's just great. So I was loving it when I was out there hiking and doing all kind of stuff as far as the outdoors is concerned. I used to go to Phoenix 2 months so for every year I would spend 2 months straight in Phoenix. And one time I went during June and July, and that was the dumbest thing to do because it was extremely hot. So that was a con for me. Because it was uncomfortable. I couldn't do anything. I had to stay inside. I couldn't work out and go hike. So the following year, I went for 2 months, October and November. It was much better. It was still hot, but it wasn't like 120 degrees out. But it was still hot, but it was comfortable to the point where I got up early in the morning and I was able to go out and take advantage of the outdoor activities that Phoenix has. But anyway, forget about Phoenix. Dope city. I love Phoenix. But Boston or Atlanta, I have to go with Boston by far. Boston does see a lot of tourism. It is busy, so you have your sightseeing buses, all that stuff like New York has, like Philadelphia has, like DC has, and Chicago has. Boston has those things. They have sightseeing tour buses and things like that. So I would recommend that Black people in the South, if you haven't checked out Boston, I highly recommend that you do so, because I think you would like it. It's dope. It's a very, 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 very vibrant city. It's a lot to do in Boston. So just, don't be regional. Don't go visit these cities, man. Go visit Boston. Come to my city, Milwaukee. Milwaukee's dope. It is really dope. You come here and kick it, you will like the city. It will surprise you. But people got to stop looking at popular stuff like New York, LA, Chicago, Miami, Vegas, and that's it. Minneapolis is off the hook. New Orleans, I like New Orleans a lot because of the interesting history that it has. It's a very different history. To me, New Orleans is one of the most unique cities in America. So yeah, Seattle, Portland, you just got to get out there. All right, peace and love. Let me know what you guys think.